Hey neighbor, we're going to be talking about beans today. You know there's a lot of misconceptions about beans out there. I promise you, you're going to learn something today. Welcome to the Row by Row Gardening Show, the best dadgum gardening show on the internet, where we talk about gardening, a little bit of cooking, and growing your own food. Now sit back and enjoy. We've got, we go back to our old setup. Yep.
Yeah, I looked kind of chunky.
Chunky?
In last week's video, kind of
You and
me.
you women, somebody comment, did somebody comment?
No, but it just, I don't know, need a change.
Need
It's
a change,
springtime,
yeah.
spring cleaning.
Yeah, you love to move furniture around. That's
I
your
do,
thing,
yeah.
moving furniture around.
Especially springtime of the year.
I have been known to walk in the house and completely moved everything moved around in there.
Yeah, that might happen this week.
If it was left up to me, we would never move anything. For the entire life, my recliner would stay in the same spot.
In your bed.
My bed. Why? I don't understand why we have to move things, but we do. Anyway, we've got our old, where we started on our, well, not where we started, but we've had for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We
Got a lot more
changed
room.
about this time last
Yeah,
year.
got a lot more room, so, okay,
Yeah.
we back to that. Flowers are pretty.
Flowers are popping. I got feverfew, which is an herb. Some ranunculus that I came back. Snapdragons, straw flowers. Everything's popping.
Popping. And speaking of everything's popping.
We got a little squash.
First squash of the year. That's not a big one, but I'm loaded up. I'm going to have a bunch of these in the next few days. Zucchinis, patty pans.
I'm thinking about picking these and cooking them this size.
We've done that before, but you better get at it because they are growing fast.
You know, I like them just, I need some salt and pepper.
Yep. Squash is one of those things that I love, folks. I get tired of them quick. We gorge ourselves out on squash when we first get them in. We cook them every way you can imagine. Fried squash is good to me. Stewed squash is good to me.
Grilled squash.
Grilled squash is good to me. I like it all. We're starting to get into that where we've been eating out of the can a lot, but we're starting to eat more fresh vegetables right now than we have in the past. Speaking of, beans are one of our staples for putting up in canning. For us preserving, beans are it for us. This is one thing that we've had ever since we got married. We've always kept these in the cabinet. What did we have last night?
Green beans and potatoes.
Green beans and potatoes. Now, sometimes you put them up with potatoes in there, new potatoes in there, and sometimes you just put them up with green beans.
I like them with potatoes.
Yeah, I do too. Kind of do it all together. Just dump it out, warm it up. Man, you got a good side hipping to a meal there. Something done a little bit different this year is...
Well, last year is I freeze dried some. Did you ever taste them?
I don't know if I did or not. Can I pop this?
Yeah. Can you?
Ooh. Put one of those little moisture things in there.
Yeah.
See. It says do not eat. Okay, I get that.
I should have reconstituted these.
Now you talking about something good. Now if you put some seasoning on that, that would be good. Just like some garlic or salt and pepper. Yep. Soak them in water and they come back to life.
Yeah. But I like to eat them just like this. The flavor is just so intense.
It is intense. I could use a little seasoning on that. But that's a great way. What they say, 20 years this will last?
25.
Now when you can green beans, what's the lifespan of those normally?
The ones I cooked last night was from 2022.
Okay, so they were
About 3
years old. Okay. Is that about the limit, 3 or 4 years? Yeah.
I don't know what the official limit is.
We don't normally keep them around that long. Normally we eat what we put up every year normally. Speaking. It's great to have there. Beans are unique. They're easy to grow in the garden. We're going to talk about this today and maybe give you some insights on how to grow beans, which variety to choose, what type to choose, of course, how to grow them, and maybe how you might want to preserve them, how it fits into your family. A lot of people up north shell the beans. We've never done that, have we? Have we ever shelled a bean in our life and put up to preserve?
The cranberry October bean.
October bean we did, yeah, we did do that one, yeah. Okay. All right, so what type bean would you want to grow? There's 3 classifications here, right?
Bush beans.
Bush beans, which is our all famous green blaze, make most time a determinate type. It's more of a compact bean with the bush beans there. And some of these new varieties are doing way better than some of these older varieties out there. And then the next is the pole beans. The pole beans is the one that climb, you have to have the trellis on. Now back in the day, there was a lot more pole beans grown than there are nowadays. Because nowadays a lot of your beans are machine harvested. But I can remember back in the day, my uncle farmed and he would have 20, 25 acres of pole beans.
Wow. Pick them by hand?
Pick them by hand. Yep. I can remember distinct. I was telling somebody 2 weeks ago about that. I have that memory of seeing this huge field of pole beans. And they would go out there and pick them. You don't see that hardly anymore. You don't see it none around here. You may see it up north somewhere, but you don't see it none around here. Pole beans, generally speaking, will last a little longer than a bush bean because they're trellised and you protect that vine a little bit. You're not trampling on the bush beans. So, and they're easier to pick because they're standing up. And then we have snap beans. Now, snap beans. And
see, I always call green beans snap beans.
Yeah, okay, so let me back up here. So let's classify them into 2 different types here, bush beans and pole beans that we just split. Now let's move into some subtypes of these different ones because this can get into either category of those first ones right there. Snap beans is this right here.
Yeah.
Is where you either snap the ends off of it or you snap them. Now this is the way here, folks, in the South, we do it. Some of you guys from up north, out west, you're going to be looking at us and think we're crazy. When we talk about beans, this is what we talk about beans. We don't hardly ever shell one out or have a dry bean. This is what we call about beans right here as far as fresh harvest goes. Now these normally are picked in what we call an immature. Now, if you let these things mature out, yeah, you could shell these out here and get some beans out of it, but these varieties that are specifically designed or bred to be a snap bean here don't lend themselves well to being a good shelling bean. So that's the reason, and green blaze is one of them. And I'm gonna show you another one here in a minute. And then we got some on the flip side of that. Snap bean is what we grow here in the South. Dry bean, on the other hand, and out in California, I was out the Santa Rosa years ago, and it's a huge thing out there, dry beans. Dry beans can be more of this right here, your Supremo beans, which a lot of people call the October beans right here. This right here is matured out, and then you shell them out. And they're fairly easy to shell. Have you ever seen a shelling bean that was not easy to shell? Just about all of them are because they're matured out here. Now this is where we get into the problem. A lot of people talk about string beans or stringy beans.
Yeah, we got a lot of people. I want to string this bean.
Bring that one back over here. All right. So with a bean, if you pick it as an immature like this right here, you're way less likely to get a string in there. What happens with the string is the pod matures out and gets a little old. It will develop that string in there. And that string is useful when you start shelling a bean. It makes it really nice. You just pull that zipper down and it pulls out.
See, I think of that with peas, shelling peas.
It is, same type scenario.
It's just a bean.
It's just a bean. It is real similar. Both of them are legumes. But when you say peas, you're talking about cow peas. Okay.
There's always a string you pop
But
on.
what do you do with if you're shelling your peas and you run across one that's immature?
Snap it.
You snap it, right? So that's the same thing here.
Okay.
Is we use the snapping beans. We pick those as immatures, and if they're picked right and use a good variety, you won't have a string in there. Now, if you let them get a little bit old, yes, you're gonna have a string in there, and the Supremo bean is a prime example of that. I guess you could snap the Supremo too, but most people that's a shelling bean, most of them.
Yeah.
All right, and then we talked about the dry beans. A lot of people take the dry beans and they put them in jars like this right here and keep them and reconstitute them. Now, I don't think they put them in a freeze dryer. We've never done this, have we? You said you did it with the October bean, but we eat those fresh.
Yeah.
We didn't keep any of them.
Now, I can some.
Did you? But as far as drying them and putting dry beans in the
No.
bottle, we've never done that. So
No.
if any of you guys out there do a lot of your dry beans and keep them in jars, let us know how you do them, because that's interesting. That's just something we was not raised doing, or we don't do. But I could see it be a huge benefit if you just got beans you can pour out there and reconstitute them or boil them and have it. A shilling bean. Might say.
So a shilling, would a butter bean be a shilling bean?
A butter bean is a shilling bean.
Edamame?
Edamame is a shilling bean. That's correct.
No, I do that a lot.
Yep, you do. So we get deep. Okay, so edamame is a soybean, which is a bean. And then butterbean is a lima bean, which is a bean. So yeah, there is a huge array of different type of beans out there. Now I'm gonna lay something on you most of you probably did not know. All beans are open pollinated. Now some of them are stabilized. They're stabilized as varieties here. They've been bred, they've been selected so they keep the same traits going forward. There is no such thing as a hybrid bean. Now, that being said, I got two varieties I'm going to show you right here, and I'm going to explain something to. Well, I got three right here. Let me get into this right here. All right, most of y'all know we just rave and rave about the Hoss green blaze bean. This right here is a snapping bean.
It's a bush bean.
It is a bush bean, and we love it because it's heat tolerant. Well, it's got all kind of things we just love about the Hoss green blaze bean.
Very productive.
The Hoss green blaze bean is a newer variety, and it has all these attributes that we love because it was bred to have those traits to it. So you could theoretically save the seed from the Hoss green blaze bush bean, plant it again, and it's going to come back true to variety. However, this is where it gets a little murky. The way they protect the varieties on this right here is they do it through patents. So beans will have, new varieties of beans that come out will have what we call a 20-year patent on that variety. For 20 years, it cannot be replicated or duplicated because it's protected through that patent. So you cannot, I say you cannot, if you grow the Hoss green blaze bean and you start selling them on the internet, yeah, you could get in some trouble there because it is protected by patent. However, if you grow the Hoss green blaze bean and you want to save you a few of these seeds to plant back next year, I'm not going to come to your house and take your beans away from you. Although technically it's illegal, I don't think anybody's going to care if you save you a few bean seeds to plant them back, and they're going to come back true to variety. Is it an heirloom? No, ma'am. It is not an heirloom. It has been bred in just the last few years, and it is a great, vigorous variety, but it is an open pollinated. Rattlesnake pole bean, on the other hand, which is a pole bean, and we sell more of this than we do anything else. I've got some of these planted in my garden right now.
You do.
Rattlesnake pole bean is an old heirloom variety. It's been around forever. Most people, we snap these, but you can, a lot of people shell them out. You can. This is a dual purpose. If you're going to snap them, make sure you get them early. Get them immature and snap them right here. But I love these right here. These got a very unique color to them, and just everybody loves rattlesnake pole bean. All right. This is a new one right here that I'm excited about. That I've got planted.
How many beans you got planted?
I've got a lot of beans planted. I've got these planted down there at the house. All right, Navajo flat bush bean. This is a new variety from the same breeder as our Hoss green blaze bush bean. The difference here, folks, is this is a flat bean. We don't see this a lot, but I can remember back in the day,
yeah.
Flat beans. I love flat beans. We just hadn't grown them in a long time because we didn't have a good bush variety of flat bean.
My
Navajo,
Aunt Doris,
she loved them, didn't she?
she loved the flat bean. That's the only thing she would grow.
So a lot of people don't know about flat beans. They got a very unique flavor to me than a regular, I call these the English style beans right here. These real round ones right here, which is just about what everybody's accustomed to. But I can tell you, back in the day, we eat a lot of these flat bush beans, and the mountain people love these flat beans also. So I'm growing some of these this year. This is an extremely good variety, which is unusual to find, a very vigorous, disease-resistant variety, but the Navajo fits the bill for that. Now, we got Supremo Bean that we just talked about. This is a October bean, cranberry bean. This is that old bean up in the mountains. They grow this a lot. They snap these and they shell them out. Some people snap the immatures and they shell them out too. This is a good one right here. A lot of people, probably more name recognition than anything.
Andy and Megan did a video yesterday on planting these.
Yep.
They used your cedar and planted them.
Yep. A lot of people also call them Taylor horticultural bean, which is a variety. The Supremo right here is a newer type that does a lot better, a lot more vigorous and everything than some of your older varieties right here. We replaced this one. About a year ago, we had a variety called Topazio. This one right here took the place of Topazio. So if you go into a farmer's market or you go into a big farm stand and you find a cranberry bean, October bean, Supremo more likely is the variety that you're buying right there. We bring it to you because it is a good variety and give it to you so you can grow it in your home garden.
Okay.
All right. So how do you plant those beans?
Got to pick the right spot.
You got to pick the right spot. You need well drained.
Full sun.
Yeah, and you ain't got to have the best soils for beans because beans are legumes and you can kind of get by with some poor soils because legumes don't take much fertility.
What does it mean when they say beans fix their own nitrogen?
Well, they're in the legume family, so when we have these thunderstorms, beans have the ability to pull the nitrogen out of the air that I'm gonna get above my pay grade here real quick. But we have these lightning storms. We have these things that go on in the atmosphere. At that time, these legumes can actually pull the nitrogen out of the air, fixate them into the soil to the root system. These little nodules on the root system there.
So you don't need to fertilize heavy with nitrogen.
Not at all. What happens is you'll grow way more vine and not enough bean. If you put too much nitrogen on your beans, it's a telltale sign. When I'm talking to somebody, they say, well, I got a bunch of vines, but I ain't got no beans.
So how do you utilize that nitrogen that those beans collect? Can you?
You can. You can use it. Most people don't, but you could. When you till back in, it works really good for rotation. Like if you're going to plant tomatoes or something other behind beans, like a fall crop or corn or anything like that, beans works really good in our rotation because it's good to plant before that. So going into it, you could utilize that nitrogen that's on that bean plant there.
So do you leave the roots in the soil? Till them
till them up. I till them up, yep.
So don't pull them up.
Well, if you're in a raised bed situation, a lot of times you got to do that. But in my flat garden, we work it into the soil because we don't want to lose that.
Okay.
But now you would put them in your compost bin is where you would have to do it because you don't have the ability to mow them like I do and work them back into the soil. But ideally, that's what you want to do is work them back into your soil.
pH between 6 and 6.8, or does it really matter?
Yeah, you want to be in the 6 range on your, if you can, on your beans right there. Now, I normally fertilize with some complete organic first as a pre-plant, and I may hit them a little bit when my plants come up. A lot of people say don't hit them at all after they come up. Kind of depends on what kind of soil you got. I like to hit them a little bit when they start coming up and get them a little bit of boost of energy to get on up there. Now, once they start putting on a lot of foliage and some blooms, I don't fertilize any after that.
Okay. What about inoculant?
Inoculant is with peas, beans, and all that kind of stuff. And we have this little shaker can right here. If you've never planted a bean or a pea in that location before, you can take this inoculant and kind of shake it out in the furrow where you plant right here. And this helps that relationship of those beneficial bacteria I just talked about.
It has the rhizobacteria.
Mm-hmm. So this right here helps all that correlation between the atmosphere and all that take place. If you have soils that have the bacteria already present in and you planted beans there before, you don't necessarily need this. It's not necessarily a have-to-have. But I would use it in a new garden, or I would use it in a place I've not planted beans the last few years, or peas, or clovers, or anything like that. Anything that's in the legume family. And this is one of the easiest to put out there because you just kind of shake it out into the furrow there.
When to plant?
It's not the end of the world if you don't use inoculant. When to plant? Well, that's a good one there. Normally speaking, we like to grow our peas early because beans, because they don't like a lot of heat. Pole beans and bush beans, for the most part, will throw their blooms off if they're blooming in hot, scorching weather. I'm talking about 95 or above. So that's the reason we like to get our pole beans and our bush beans in early. And that's the great thing about the green blaze. It being as heat tolerant as it is, it lengthens our ability to grow them a little bit later. We grew those last year. We picked them on way up into June, didn't we? Mm-hmm. So that's a good one there. But pole beans, especially rattlesnake, they'll start throwing the blooms off when it gets hot. So you want to get them off.
And they
early.
can't take cold either.
Can't take the cold either. I like to plant mine fairly easy. Where we get into trouble is trying to plant them in cool soils like I did this year. I had a little bit of trouble getting a stand. We're going to be moving more in the next year to give you guys more of an option on some of these fungicide treated bean seeds because they do not germinate well in cool soils, and we need to get them up during that time. So all the farmers use the fungicide treated bean, and it helps on the germination, and not only germination, but it helps when that seed sprouts and it comes up and helps protect it against some diseases. I got a little bit of a poor stand this year simply because I planted them in poor
When it's too
temps.
cool at night.
It's a little too cool, so that's going to take care of that. So we're going to be transitioning a little bit more to a treated seed there on that, just a fungicide treated seed.
Plant an inch deep.
Yeah, anywhere from 3/4 of an inch to inch somewhere there. I put drip irrigation on mine, but if you're going to water in a garden situation, you got to plant as deep as what the farmers would on some dry land or anything like that.
Now, do you plant the pole beans and the bush beans different spacing or the same?
Yeah, I normally put my bush beans will be a lot closer together, 4 to 6 to 8 inches apart, somewhere in there. My pole beans, I'll do them about 12 inches apart.
Okay. Water.
Yeah, they like water. I mean, maybe not as water as some other things, but I always put mine on drip irrigation to keep them watered well. As far as insects goes, we'll see some problems with aphids on them, especially black aphids and sometimes green aphids on there. Normally easy to kill, but they'll actually get on the stem and the leaf there. One of the biggest problems we have with beans is a disease called rust. Rust is really bad, and it looks just like what the name implies. It looks like rust on the leaf there. We got a product called Fungamax. It's probably the best thing on bean rust that I've ever seen. So if you're going to grow a lot of beans, you probably want to get you some Fungamax, keep on hand, and keep them sprayed with that to keep that rust to the bay there. As far as the insecticide goes, you can go with some of the organics probably and keep them clean enough to get the job done, because those aphids are fairly easy to control.
What about succession planting?
Yeah, as we mentioned a while ago, it works really good succession planting and also rotation wise. But succession planting, if you do it early enough in the springtime, you might get 2 crops in. I wouldn't plant anything in here this deep far in the south that's going to come off in July or August.
So if you planted some right now, it'd be okay?
I'd be pushing it where we live, but you probably could get by if you used a heat tolerant variety such as green blaze, you'd probably be okay. And I think the Navajo is heat tolerant as well. Maybe not as much as green blaze, but it is a heat tolerant variety. In the fall of the year, you could get at least 2 crops in. You could plant them in end of August. Now, as far as the plants coming up and growing, the heat don't bother them. Where it bothers them is when they start putting on blooms. So if we get that plant up and get it start blooming around October, that'd be perfect when the weather cools off a little bit. So you could definitely get 2 crops in the fall.
Okay.
But as Mitch will go, it makes them wonderful as a rotation for our corn, our tomatoes, our peppers, all that kind of stuff. Row spacing, 30, 36 inches, maybe a little bit further than that. The hulls on these bush beans, they don't get real big. I think 36 inch spacing is good on that one right there. So that's normally what I do.
And talking about pole beans for support, we have the Hortonova trellis.
Trellis.
Use hog panels.
Hog panels is what I used. Last year I used a Hortonova trellis, and I just zip tied it up. Both of them works fine.
Some people use teepees.
Yeah, I've done that before too. There's a bamboo and make those. Anything to kind of support them. Now, they will get kind of heavy, and you get a windstorm in there when those things really get filled out. It can blow them over, so make sure that they're supported well. Butter beans are the same thing. So we've got bush butter beans, and we've got climbing butter beans on those as well. Now the old regular Fort Hooks is a bush bean that we used to grow for, and Henderson is another bush bean. Butter beans that are bush beans are probably the most hardest things to harvest.
Back-breaking.
Back-breaking. And then we've gone to growing the pole butter beans pretty much. Christmas lime is a good one, but it's a big bean. And we've got Reverend Fry that we've been out of a couple of years. I got a huge seed crop planted this year on
Is
that
that
one.
the same as the Reverend Taylor?
Yeah, I messed up calling it Reverend Taylor, but it's actually Reverend Fry. I call it Reverend Taylor, Reverend Fry. I think they're all the same Reverend there. Yeah, it's a variety that I was gifted over in Alabama, but it's a speckled butter bean, but it's a smaller, regular shape.
You're growing a
regular
bunch
size butter bean.
of seed.
I'm growing a huge seed crop on those this year so we can get them back in stock. Butter beans, folks, is a lima bean, and a lima bean is a butter bean. Keep that in mind there. Our friends up north call them lima beans. We call them butter beans. So, and I think the line is pretty far, I'd say somewhere around North Georgia up. They call them lima beans.
Because they usually eat them dry.
They do eat them dry. Well, you see them in the grocery store, you see dry butter beans.
Yeah,
in the
we
grocery
just
store.
don't cook them that much.
We just don't cook. We cook regular fresh butter beans, or you've put them up and frozen before. So anyway, beans. You can save your own seed from beans. There's a lot of heirlooms out there, and there's several different ones to grow according to how big your garden is and the way you want to preserve them. If you've got small areas out there, or if you have trouble bending over a lot, definitely go with the pole types, whether it be a butter bean or a snap bean or a shelling bean. If you don't mind getting out there and you got plenty of room, you can probably make more with these bush varieties if you got plenty of room and you don't mind bending over to harvest them. Pretty much it. Beans are just a staple for us, for our diet, for our putting up and keeping in the shelf.
Good, healthy,
Yeah.
low-carb option.
Yep. And one way we started cooking them a couple of years ago is taking these fresh ones and putting them in the oven and roasting them. Oh man.
Or just sauteing them.
Or
I like
sauteing.
them crunchy.
Yeah, I do too.
Growing up, we always,
Had them like that.
yeah, like that. But I like them with a little crunch to them.
Yep.
You can wrap them in bacon too, throw them on the grill.
Man, off the chain. All right, I think that's got the bean thing. Hope we liked you. Save your seeds for your beans. How about that? Because some of these beans are hard to get. Now, it seems to me there's different varieties that are grown more in different areas. I know up in Ohio and that area, Indiana, up in that area, they love jade bush bean up there. We don't grow jade much down here. But they love and contender. There's several different varieties that are grown more in certain geographic areas than others. May have to do with something the weather. They just may simply do better there. I don't know. We don't grow a lot of jade down here. The Hall Green Blaze is our standard variety down here. But
What about, I thought we sold a lot of Kentucky Wonder.
Kentucky Wonder, but that's old varieties. We do sell a lot for name recognition. They are better beans out there than some of those old varieties. We still sell a lot of them, but I would highly recommend going to some of these newer varieties. They'll perform way better. All right, so we've got Garden Spotlight.
This week is Sharon Healy from Alexandria, Alabama, Zone 7B. Got a huge harvest of Hall's breakfast radish.
I grew them in spring. They are good. They're easy to grow.
Grew from seed in a raised bed in
Yep.
the backyard.
Yep. Look at the seed there. She got a bunch of those seeds. Yeah, they are pretty. I don't know how you preserve those radishes.
Ferment them.
Ferment. Yeah, that would be good. Yep. All right, folks. The old goat. He's scattered around here, but he's on the set somewhere, and we're going to do a drawing for last week's winner of the old goat. If you find the old goat, put it in the comments below, and we'll do next week's drawing of the old goat. And this week's winner is Leslie Montemeyer. Yep. Leslie, send us your shipping address to.
Oh, did you notice on Garden of the Week they had some Get Dirty socks?
They did on that. Yeah.
She must have been a previous winner.
So Leslie, send your information to.
Support@growhouse.com.
Look at that, Leslie. You'll be sporting these around. also. Wear you some shorts where everybody can see them. All right, so we still got turmeric for sale. Folks, get you some turmeric. You still got plenty of time to plant your turmeric. We got asparagus. We got another shipment coming in the middle of May. We have a little bit of asparagus left. Millennium, Mary Washington, and a purple variety right there.
We got peppers.
We got peppers, and we got next week we're probably gonna wind up on our tomatoes. And this pollen is killing me. Pecan pollen.
Pecan pollen.
Pecan pollen is killing me. But we too survive. Everybody's sniffing around here and coughing a little bit. It's that time of the year when the pollen's playing havoc on everybody.
Yeah, the pine pollen's kind of gone now. It's the pecan trees.
Yeah. Thank y'all for joining us. Get outside and get those hands dirty.